You want to go for prime? Okay, we can do prime. That's fine. Ah, that was a horrible mistake. I made horrible mistakes. All right, there we go. Nope, I want to back up. Back up. Back up. Nope, too far back. There we go. And I forget which page prime is on. It's P, so, you know, it's alphabetical, so it's not that far. Spheres, entropy, matter, mind, and prime. Here we go. Okay, here we are. Like I said, prime is the study of the building block of all reality, which is quintessence. What subatomic particles are made of. Quintessence. The base. Can't see it yet, but that's what it is. Now, with level 1, we can store quintessence. Free quintessence does exist. Not everything that's ever going to exist or ever has existed still exists, which means there's free quintessence in the air to be had. You can store that in your body, and you can use that to augment your magic. That's the primary use of Prime 1. Store in your body, augment your magic. Oh, Spider wants to know about task, quint, and nodes. Okay, we will definitely talk about that because that's going to get into the higher level stuff. First rank of Prime also provides a mage with basic perceptions of quintessence, which is the ability to sense where it is stored and the magnitude of that reservoir. Now, what Spider is saying, I'm going to put that up because he's saying it in YouTube. And for those of you watching on Twitch, you won't be able to see it. But TAS, and I'm going to go with TAS and nodes. TAS is a physical manifestation of quintessence. It's quintessence in physical form. Usually, this is stuff that is living, but it could also be crystals that are found at a node. A node is a if you want to use the ley line analogy from lots of mystical texts, both in other games and in real life. The Japanese call it the dragon blood or something like that. I don't know, but there are lines of magical energy that are around the world, and where these lines intersect, the magical energy becomes more powerful. These are nodes, and nodes are very, very coveted by mages because they produce quintessence every day in the form of quintessence leaking out of them, or in the form of tasks, say mushrooms growing in a pristine emerald field in Ireland, or an underground cave of beautiful rose quartz crystals. Those rose quartz crystals grew there and are filled with raw quintessence because they grew from a node. You can take that and you can draw the quintessence out of that and use it to power your effects, spells, whatever. You can use it to make your magical effects easier, to do other things. Of course, we're going to get into that as we get into the higher levels here. But yes, thank you, Spider, for that. That's level 1. You can sense these things. You can find tasks. You can find nodes. You can sense free quintessence. You can store it in your body. That's what level 1 gives you. It's an amazing thing. Every mage should have Prime 1. Every mage. Now, Prime 2. If you want to specialize in the physicality of reality, life, forces, and matter, then every one of those mages is going to need Prime 2, fuel pattern. Without this, you cannot create energy. You cannot create life. You cannot create matter. You can only manipulate what's already there. So the mage realizes the existence of a seemingly infinite pool of quintessence that exists throughout reality. This quintessence is free, not bound to patterns. If a mage is knowledgeable enough in one of the 3 spheres of pattern magic, life, forces, matter, you can divert a trickle from the great pool of quintessence into a pattern of your own creation. In the case of patterns that create life, the mage sets up a stream of quintessence to feed the created pattern. Like I said earlier, anything that is alive has a flow of quintessence through it. Not just filled with it, but also a flow in and out, to and from the pool of free quintessence in the universe. The reason that is because a living thing changes second to second. Every moment of time that passes, your body is infinitesimally different than it was a moment ago. And it's going to be infinitesimally different a moment from now. You're always changing. Your pattern is never static. Therefore, your flow of quintessence cannot be. It has to be a flow. In and out, like breathing. With Prime 2, you can start that flow. You can create life. Or just stick a whole bunch of quintessence into a pattern and create a chair. You can do that too. Or create a nuclear explosion. You need forces 5 or 4 or 5, but whatever. You can do that. 3, where you get to channel quintessence. Spider says again, the Shrina organization is very much like the technocrats. I'm focusing just on the spheres. I'm not going into any other aspect of the game. But this reminds me how Mako works in Final Fantasy VII. Never played it, Mahakman. I'm sorry. Never played Final Fantasy VII. All right, but channel quintessence. There are rare sites called nodes. I explained them earlier. Where the powers of reality are focused. These places are vital to mages, for nodes store a surplus of quintessence. The surplus is called free quintessence by mages, and it's their lifeblood. Free quintessence may be used to aid magical effects, create talismans, strengthen enchantries, and build new domains. At this rank, the mage understands how to draw these reservoirs of surplus free quintessence out of the patterns in which they are stored. The mage becomes a conduit of quintessence, storing it in his own being or channeling it into other patterns, such as a Chantry's pocket realm. Now, this alters the node, the flow of quintessence of the node, to instead of flowing from itself back into the universe, you can make the flow of energy from the node flow into you, flow into an object, or you can actually create a bubble reality, a small pocket of reality that you define, can be powered by the quintessence from nodes. Now that's higher level stuff. That's creating your own pocket dimensions and stuff. That is possible. It can be done and sustained by the flowing energy of a node. Think of a node as a spring of quintessence, an underwater spring that is always flowing. Now, usually it's just absorbed back into the earth and then flows again. But if you can channel that flow into yourself, you can just not pull free quintessence from the air. You can pull large amounts of quintessence from the node stored in your body. You no longer require the tasks, the growing moss or mushrooms or crystals from where nodes are located. You no longer need to carry those physical items around. You can take that free quintessence, skip the middleman, which is the mushroom spore or the crystal, and just store it directly in your body, ready for use. And unlike pulling free quintessence from the air, you can pull more of it faster because there's a larger concentration in the node. So that's Prime 3. Now, Prime 4 is where it gets weird. Prime 4 is where this one gets a little OP. But most people don't get Prime beyond 3 because beyond 3, unless you are focusing to become a master of Prime, there's not a bunch of utility. The stuff you can do with Prime 4, you can do with Matter 3, Life 3, and Forces 3. Or analogies, close enough analogies that you don't need this, but it is very interesting. While disciplines of Prime are largely limited to detecting and manipulating free quintessence, adepts of Prime, those with 4 dots, begin to learn rudimentary methods for channeling raw quintessence. They're able to pull quintessence out of patterns of matter and energy, thereby affecting the pattern's incarnation reality. Each shard of inanimate matter and each spark of energy has quintessence stored in its pattern. Adepts can expel the quintessence from these patterns, recycling it into the cosmic pool. Without quintessence in its pattern, matter or energy ceases to exist. Now, with Prime 4, you can break the fundamental law of the universe that matter and energy cannot be destroyed or created, just change forms. No. Now, you can ultimately destroy energy, not change its form. You can destroy it by taking out the quintessence that makes it real. You have now unmade it. You can unmake energy. You can unmake matter. You can unmake a person. Using Prime 4. It gets scary. And it's almost always vulgar unless you do it. I mean, you can unmake the energy in a battery by, like, banging on the battery or puncturing it in some small way and say you damaged the battery, therefore the battery no longer has a charge. Its charge completely dissipated. You could say that. Coincidental. You snap your fingers, you can with Prime 4, you can snap people out of you can Thanos someone out of existence. And then Spider-Man starts to not feel so good. You can do that. If you pull all of them, if you not only stop the flow of quintessence to the living thing, that will kill it, but also rip out the quintessence from its matter pattern, you will disintegrate it into nothing. That's what Thanos did to half the universe. Prime 4, scary stuff. Scary stuff. Then we get to Prime 5, Alter Flow. Masters of Prime continue to delve into the theories that give them greater control over raw quintessence. They can now begin to alter established flows of raw quintessence. This gives them great control over patterns of life. Living beings interact with quintessence in a unique manner. The quintessence is not stored in their patterns. Rather, a stream of quintessence continuously flows through their pattern. By damaging the flow into a life pattern, the mage extinguishes the spark of life within the creature. In addition to stopping quintessence flow, the mage can increase the flow of quintessence through a pattern. This is of little benefit to life forms without strong avatars, but those with strong dynamic potential can instantly recharge their avatar's quintessence. Okay, this is snapping your fingers and just killing someone. If you successfully stop the flow of quintessence to any living being, it just dies. It just dies. If you succeed in stopping the flow of quintessence by any margin, in any living thing, it just dies. That's it. You're not damaging it. It doesn't get to roll to resist physically. It doesn't get to roll to resist because you're not damaging it. You're just stopping reality from making it alive. The OG GM's Adventure, he's referencing WandaVision. Also, some Master Prime report they have found connection between paradox and quintessence analogous to those between negative and positive forces. These mages have found little use for this budding knowledge, but some have managed to channel free quintessence in such a way that it cancels paradox energies that are not coalesced inside a pattern. That is something that is beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about. So that's basically what Prime does. And these are example Prime effects. Now, the reason why that this is one of the best magical systems out there is because each one of these levels is very broadly defined, purposefully so. The player can create from their own imagination any effect that falls into the scope of a dot they possess. If they possess 3 dots in Prime, they can create any effect that will fall under the purview of Prime 3, which is channel quintessence. Some of these effects, the Rush, this is a Prime 1 effect. Disciples of Prime are able to collect free quintessence that is channeled into their pattern. Each success rolled allows another point of quintessence to be stored. The mage may only make one roll per source of quintessence. Note that the mage cannot himself channel quintessence until he reaches rank 3 in Prime. This effect allows the mage to become a receptacle only. This is where you can store quintessence in your body to use it to fuel magical effects later. You can't put it into anything yet. You only have Prime 1. You can't create reality with it, but you can assist yourself in altering reality by bringing your target number down, by using quintessence in rolling magical effects. Sense quintessence. Also, again, almost all of the rank 1s are sensibilities. You have to be able to sense that part of reality you want to manipulate first. You can sense free quintessence in the air. You can sense nodes. You can sense tasks, the physical manifestation of quintessence. You can sense this stuff. And now with this Prime 1, you're able to utilize it. That beautiful Irish grove that the mushrooms grow in a perfect circle around, you take one of those mushrooms, that's 1 point of quintessence in the form of task, physical quintessence. You keep that in your pocket, you save it, you eat it later, and you can use that point of quintessence to do whatever. You have access to it. 2. Here we go. Rubbing the bones. Disciples of Prime do not yet have the ability to cause serious disruption of the flow of quintessence into a pattern of life, but they're able to tamper with that flow to some extent. You Thanatos call this effect the rubbing the bones because the briskly rub of the bone foci, blah, blah, blah. Any life form affected will be stunned and unable to function for the duration of the fluctuation. Think of it this way. With Prime 2, you can sense the flow of quintessence through a living thing. Now, you can't stop it. You can't seriously affect it. You can't divert it, but you can screw with it. You can bang on it a little bit, and that will disrupt the living being. It will stun the living being. It will shock the living being. It's kind of like inducing a heart palpitation. The person their body will momentarily react to the change in blood pressure, heart rate. Your body will freak out. If you screw with someone's quintessence flow, that's exactly what will happen. Now, is that going to be vulgar or is that going to be coincidental? It depends on how you frame it. If you have a patch and you stick someone with a patch, you can say that it's some kind of drug. There's no drug on it. This is a coincidental effect. You slap it on their hand, you slap it on their face, whatever, and then they start having heart palpitations, or all of their neurons start firing at one time. It's the drug. Or you have a stun gun. Hit them with a stun gun. You're actually using a Prime 2 effect to shock them, to alter the flow ever so slightly of quintessence through their body, making their body freak out. But if you just snap your fingers and suddenly Joe Blow can't move, and people see that without some kind of reason, that's going to be vulgar. So again, it's how the player frames it. It's how the player explains the magic. It gives players all the agency they want. It's all their imagination. If you can convince the storyteller that it could happen, coincidental magic. Would you say Mage is like Doctor Strange? Ghost of Tandalorn. That is an excellent thing. Yes. Yes, I would. The way Magick is brought up in the MCU is very much like Mage the Ascension First Edition. Very much like. Now, there's argument to say at the core it is different, fine, but it reacts similarly, where you don't need to memorize spells. You can build stuff on the fly. And it happens a lot with the movie Doctor Strange. Sure, he studies a lot, and that's what we're looking at. We're looking at rotes. These are established abilities passed on from mentor to student throughout the years, and it just helps them as common examples of what can be done. And when you're first learning magic, it's a good idea to have a mentor or experiment to see exactly what can be done and write that down. But in the end, Doctor Strange can make any magical effect he can think of. If he can imagine it, he can make it happen. Same thing in Mage. If you can imagine it and you have the right spheres, you can make it happen. Okay, Dr. Spider, again, going beyond the scope of what I'm talking about with foci and styles. Foci are magical crutches. It's a physical item that helps you channel your will in a specific way to create a specific magical effect. Like someone may have a crystal around their neck as their focus for matter. As long as they have that focus, they can cast magic normally. If they lose that focus, they get a target number penalty for using any matter magic. Now, the more arete you get, the more knowledgeable in magic you become, the less foci you need. For every point beyond one arete, you can drop one focus. For example, if you have an arete of 3 and you have 2 spheres of magic, you do not need to use any focus to use magic, because you only have 2 spheres and you can drop 2 foci. There you go. If you later on develop a 3rd sphere and do not develop a 4th point of arete, of magical knowledge, you will require a focus. Anyway, creating a talisman. Here's a good one. This is 3. Remember, prime 3 is changing the flow of quintessence, taking the flow from one area, putting it into something else. Creating a talisman. A mage must have rank 3 in prime to create items that store free quintessence and use it to power magical effects. Rules for creating talismans are provided in chapter 8. Now, this is creating magic items that are like Dungeons and Dragons wands, or magical swords, or magical armor, or a helm of telepathy. You can create these things in Mage, but you need a prime of 3 to make an object store the raw quintessence necessary to provide that magical effect. And again, the talismans are out of the scope of what we're doing, but you need the prime of 3 to create magic items, basically. Flames of purification. This is the prime of 4. This is the whole making things not exist. Mages of the celestial chorus, for example, are not destructive by nature. Still, they have been known to wield the power of prime to cleanse reality of things profane to them. By fanning her focus of flame over a chosen object, the mage can invoke this effect and cause the object to burst into mystical flames. The mage is actually extracting all of the quintessence from the object's pattern. The object thus disappears from reality, eventually becoming non-existent. The more successes the mage scores, the greater amount of mass the mage can affect. She can affect several similar patterns simultaneously, such as all of ice cubes in a glass. Only inanimate objects can be affected with this power. You can literally rip the reality out of something and make it cease to exist. In the celestial chorus sense, they use the purification fire. Whatever. You can just snap a chair out of existence and have it disappear if you get enough successes. Or if you don't get enough successes, it will become damaged beyond usefulness. Or just cracked if you suck at it. But yeah. Dying Max wants to see how you're doing. Noro, I hope he's feeling better. He said he was going to take a 200-degree bath. I hope he's doing better, and we're doing okay. We're doing all right. And it brings us to level 5. Level 5 is Recharge Gift and Quintessence Blast. Examples of powers that you can accomplish, abilities you can accomplish with 5 dots in Prime. Oh, wait. This says, this kind of reminds me of a story I read a long time ago where the main character and bad guys could only do magic as long as one believes it was magic. As long as no one believes it was magic. No, that in Mage, magic is easier if people believe it's not magic. But you can actually just throw a fireball. You can actually throw a lightning bolt. You can actually create storm clouds or open a black hole next to somebody. You can do that. You're going to pay for it. Reality is going to fight back on you, but you can do that too. I mean, I have run a game where players just went, F it. I'm just going to have this dude burst into flames. I'm tired of his nonsense. I no longer have the patience to try and figure out a way to make it coincidental. I just want to have flames shoot from my eyes onto his body and burn him to death. Okay. Prime 2 forces 3. But you're only instead of rolling your arete, which is your general magical knowledge, you're rolling your forces dice, which is whatever rank and forces you have as your total dice pool. So it's harder, usually harder to get that effect done, but you can just do it. All right. So anyway, recharge gift. Through meditation, mages of the Akashic Brotherhood, for example, were able to increase the flow of raw quintessence through their own patterns. The mage is able to filter the additional quintessence through his own avatar, soul, and recharge his personal store of quintessence. For each success stored in the effect, the mage regains 1 point of quintessence up to his avatar background maximum limit. This is a really quick and dirty way to give yourself quintessence literally anywhere. You don't have to be at a node. You don't have to use tasks. You don't have the slow drain of free quintessence from the general universe. You can just rip quintessence out of the general universe and bust it into your body. And that's it. Level 5, a quintessence blast. Dream speakers have devised an effect to help them ward off spirits of paradox. The master of Prime charges his crystal focus, if you need a focus, by spending a point of quintessence. The dream speaker then uses his magic to draw the paradox spirit into the crystal focus. The essence of the spirit reacts with the quintessence stored in the crystal. The reaction injures the spirit, dispels part of its essence, and causes the crystal to explode into dust. For a dramatic effect only, no damage is actually caused. With this quintessence blast, you can actually disrupt the pattern of spirits, especially paradox spirits, because paradox and quintessence are like matter and antimatter. Quintessence is the stuff of reality, and paradox is created when you screw with reality. So when they meet, you can have the quintessence burn away the paradox by destroying itself in the process. So that is helpful. But again, most people stop at 3. Most people stop at 3 because 4 and 5 are not really sought after abilities. But yeah, there we are. That was Prime. Now, anyone else have any questions? You can go into question and answer mode. And throughout this entire thing, I completely forgot to click on segment 1. I completely forgot to have the fundamentals up. That was on me. So that is Mage, the Ascension, just the magical system, just how the magic works. And it is amazing because it gives the player so much leeway, so much ground that they can play in. And every spell is a little bit of give and take with you and the storyteller. A little bit of give and take. You know, you have to convince the storyteller it's coincidental vulgar. You have to explain to the storyteller, yes, I can do this using this sphere and this sphere put together. Okay. This says, I think they're only able to do things like a fireball with a limited number of people to see it and believe it is magic anymore, and then limit it didn't work. Okay, that's fine. I mean, in Mage, it doesn't matter how many people see it; it'll still work. If you get the successes, it'll work, no problem. But you'll get punished with paradox at the end. Let's talk about how hard it is to control Mage players. Oh. No, it's not hard. It's not hard to control Mage players because because the storyteller is the ultimate adjudicator of what can and cannot be done. Now, what I recommend to players is take some time outside the game, read your spheres, read the powers that are encompassed within the sphere that you know, and try and make up effects for it. Write them down. I'm going to use Prime 2 and Life 2 to do this. I'm going to use Correspondence 1 and I'm going to use Correspondence 1 and Life 3 to do this. I'm going to use Mind 1 and Life 3 to do this. Write it down. Run it by your storyteller. Say, I want to do this, this, and this. Is it, number one, is it doable with the spheres I'm listing? And is it vulgar or not? Make your case. That way you've got stuff in your pocket. You have spells in your pocket you've pre-thought of that you can pull out if you need it. Plus, it exercises your mind into thinking around the powers that you have. So you're more able to think on the fly to create a magical effect spontaneously because you've studied what your sphere powers can do. Yo, you cast a spell, you cause the end of existence as we know it. Game over. You can do that. You can do that. You'd have to get an enormous amount of successes that would be all but undeniable, but there you go. Jebediah, thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, hope you come back next time. Next time, hopefully Max will be here to help me out. Oh, also the storyteller decides how much paradox you accumulate. No, the storyteller decides if it's coincidental or vulgar. Your rolls will decide how much paradox you accumulate. If you botch a coincidental magic roll, you get 1. If you botch a vulgar magic roll, you can get up to a lot. It all depends on how you roll. If you succeed at a vulgar magic roll, you will get a certain amount of paradox based on the level of power you've displayed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on what you've done. But also if you botch it, you get even more. So no, the storyteller doesn't decide how much paradox you get. The storyteller decides what category your magic falls into. Your roll will decide how much paradox you get. So yeah. Okay. Now, normally this would be the time where we talk about our segment 2, but we don't have a segment 2 because the segment 2s are Max's thing. I try and stay off of Twitter and Polygon and Kotaku as much as possible, and for that, please subscribe. That'd be great. But we're going to jump right into segment 3, which is you guys coming to me and asking me some questions. I'm going to put the invite into chat. Pop it in here. Presto, changeo, pasto. There we go. So if you have a mic, you can jump in. You don't need a camera. Just ask any question about the way Magick is in Mage, and I will answer it as best I can. If I can't answer it right away, hey, we got the book in front of us. You know, I also got this book in front of us. We'll find out together, and we will learn something new. So anyone who wants to jump in, any questions you have, like how would I create a car, a fully functional car out of thin air? We can talk about that if you want. So I'm going to take a minute. Everyone, it's the links are in chat. All you have to do is click on the link and you will come into the waiting room, and then I will pull you on screen.